when we look at why we're here. Life Builders United, Inc. hosts BlackGreekSpeak.org New Black Leadership Campaign Mentorship. That's a lot in that, right? There's a lot of key things in that. And one of the things that we want to get to when it comes to solutions are laser beaming on exactly what it is that we say the solutions are that we're either actively engaged in and doing, and if you're not actively engaged in and doing it, then we probably need to have another meeting that's called a brainstorming meeting, where you brainstorm ideas and sift through them. But this is not the brainstorm, sift through meeting. I think this is the meeting of, this is what's actively going on, it's being done now, the present living active now, and we want to know about it because we have to synergize, we have to unify, okay? So is everybody on the same page?
Yes, sir.
So it's not to say that ideas that are in the beginning stages are not needed, but for this particular meeting, we want to know what's gone past the beginning stage and has matured, evolved, and has some babies, it'll multiply. That's what we want to know about, okay? All right, so this is solutions heavy. This is solutions heavy. Now, because it's solutions heavy, we're gonna start off with business because we know that that's a serious form of warfare. So please, give our brother John a hand as he goes into the solutions, or to the issue in the solution.
Brothers and sisters, good morning. I want to give honor to God, first of all, and then also to our distinguished MC and our organizer, Brother Randolph Norris. And I also want to give a shout out to my brothers of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you very much. Any other Qs in the house, Rue? I don't know if you know, if you noticed, but Brother Norris decided to open the panel discussion and close it with commerce and with business, commerce, essentially economics. I don't presume to know the reason why he did that, but I know why I would have done that. I would have done it because I believe that economics is the root cause of all of the social and political and other issues that challenge our people in this country and throughout the world. I believe that all of the solutions to all of these problems are rooted in economics. And the solutions will grow out of our economic base that we build. As we do that, all of these other problems will become solved and the solutions will fall in place. That being said, I want to just give a quick snapshot of our economic situation as African Americans. When people think of black business, typically what flashes through my mind and many others is the corner stores and maybe the pop-up shops or booths that we vend from, selling body oils or shea butter and various other items of personal products and a few other consumables. And those are the black businesses. We don't conceive of black business as industry. We don't perceive black people as owning industries, because by and large in America, we do not. It is the industrial foundation that we created in this country soon after the end of slavery through the Tuskegee machine that created the economic foundation of the success that we did have once in this country. That kind of industrial foundation is the root of the solutions that are incorporated in this book, the philosophy, the plan, Powernomics plan of Dr. Claude Anderson. It is this plan, rooted in economics, building our economic base that enables us to spill our wealth that we generate from our economic base into politics, into the judicial system and law enforcement, into media and into education, so that we will uplift our social and justice status to the point where we were in our heyday in this country, the Harlem Renaissance, in the days of the Black Wall Streets that we had not only in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but also all throughout the South and the West, and even in the Midwest, during the days when we did own industries. So we must focus on taking control of and dominating certain industries and integrating them from the ground up, so that throughout that industry, every single hand, every employee, every creator, every source, and every the transportation of the products, the delivery of the services, all of that is owned and controlled by our people living in our neighborhoods. This is the economic solution that I propose. I'm a very staunch student of Dr. Claude Anderson. I have, over the last year, been recruiting, and we are incorporating task forces that are now executing these plans, and I would like any of you interested to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You didn't do pretty bad. Look at that stopwatch right there. Just want you all to know, if y'all hear some beatboxing going on, that means it's time. Y'all ain't know I beatbox. I do hip hop for real. Y'all ain't know that? I ain't know that for real. I'm like, this dude is crazy. We hip hop detox for a reason. Now, the next person, and as you can see, Brother Dolph, he has his signs up and everything, doing the Vanna Black. So Dolph got signs and everything, so we're gonna make sure that we keep it going. So please give a hand to our sister, Dr. Pearson, and wanna make sure the area that Dr. Pearson is covering is education.
Thank you very much. I want to first give honor to my creator, and I want to also thank everyone here who invited me. This is the first time, I don't remember names, but thank you very much. The issue is education. I have 2 minutes for that. My main focus on education is that we as individuals always tend to think education begins and stops within the brick mortar, within this focus, within the foundation of the educational system, and that's not true. What we rely on is that the K through 12, that is all the education that we need. Education is holistic and it is empowering. If you do not have education, you do not have access to economics and all the other things that are identified here on this panel. So we as individuals, as a culture of individuals, we need to take our educational system to another level. Education begins at the point of inception or conception. When that spermatozoa hits that egg, that mother has the ability to train and nurture that child. So Queens, it's our job to nurture that child. From the 9 months you carry that child, you are educating that child. You are giving them instances and showing them things where they should go. As Reverend Louis Farrakhan said, if you want a physician, go read medical books. If you want, excuse my language, if you want a dummy, stay in the nail shop. We as individuals have to realize that we cannot rely on individuals to teach our children, because you cannot teach anybody anything. There are no teachers, they are facilitators. You have to want the education, and a facilitator will open the door and you will walk through. You have to want to do that. We have to train our children that after K through 12, then you have to have that desire to want to learn, to be a lifelong learner. I cannot say what's wrong with the educational system. The only thing is that I can say is that the instructors that are there have been trained by the same broken system that is training our children now. So they're teaching, they're facilitating at the point of reference. So what should we do? Mothers and fathers, what's about? Train your children. It says train them up in a manner that you want him to be. Honorable, respectful. You cannot depend on society to train our children. When they leave that classroom, go home with them, pick up a book, read with that child. Even when they're at the adolescent, as I said, education starts from the point of inception. It goes through the nurturing system. The infant has to be trained. The toddler has to be trained. The child has to be trained. The adolescent has to be trained. All the way through when you die. You learn when you die because you have made your peace with God, so you found out something at that point too. Education is lifelong. It's a lifelong learning system, and we have to train our children that when you get finished with high school, you're not through. That's it, that's all. Thank you.
Give Dr. Pearson a hand again, you all. You actually had a couple more minutes, but you said, said you should have told you that. It's okay, we're gonna come back around. Now, we're gonna have just one shift in terms of order before we go to entertainment, which of course one of my favorite areas to discuss. We have to go to spirituality first. So we're gonna go from the entertainment Lucifer, we're gonna go into religion and spirituality directly. So please give a hand to Brother Cobb here as we go right into religion and spirituality. And then we'll come right back to the entertainment Lucifer.
Let me apologize. I'm actually working right now, and I work at Addison and Central at the hospital. And it's my job as a chaplain to help people die. I hold people's hands at the last moment of their life. But those aren't the tough times. The tough times is when I have to hold a mom's hand when her child has passed away. And what I find as a chaplain is there are very few atheists on the last minute. There are very few people who are claiming there is no God when their last breath is taken. And those who do claim there is no God are the angriest people I have ever seen. And so what we know now is that particularly black people have always had a spiritual side. And if we want to find out what the problem is with our young people, they've forgotten about God. We have moved away from what's important, our foundation. I don't care what you call it. We've forgotten about our spiritual side. We have forgotten about God. We have moved away from the mountains that we have moved. We have forgotten that we are a people who survived the worst tragedies in the history of the world. And we did that through spirituality. We have got to get back to spirituality. We have got to get back to people knowing there is a God, and how do we get to him? See, that's my job. Helping you find out where God is. In the worst moments and in the greatest moments. My God I call Jesus, and others call him a lot of other things. Yahweh. They call him a lot of other things. But what we know is Africans have always had a spirituality.
Come on.
And it is that spirituality that got us through slavery. It is that spirituality that got us through segregation and lynchings and murder. And then somewhere along the way, somebody told us we have arrived and we forgot about our spirituality. So one of the things that we need to do is put the spirituality back on the street. See, my mentors were preachers and priests and teachers who believed in God. They were the ones who told me there is a tomorrow and I'm going to tell you how to get there. Our young people don't believe there's a tomorrow because they don't see anything past the physical. That's the transcendent. That's the spiritual. They don't see anything past the physical. And I promise you, there is a transcendence. I promise you there is a greater place than this. And even if you can't understand the God piece, then there are our ancestors, those who have gone before us, who have never left us, those who have walked this earth, who still, from the reaches of beyond, walk with us. Yeah. We can reach out to them. Sweet Honey in a Rock said, listen more often to things than to beings. It's the ancestors' word. And the fire's voice is heard. We have to listen to those who have gone before us to understand where we're going next. See, we suffer. Our children suffer from amnesia. They don't know who Ida B. Wells is. They don't know who Fannie Lou Hamer is and how much she believed in God and how she suffered for us to have the right to vote. What is transcendence and spirituality? It's teaching them about their ancestors who survived with the hand of God. That's my job. Not all of us know how to do that. And as a matter of fact, I caution you to be careful about going to somebody who thinks they do. What we really do in spirituality, what I really do, is help you find the God you think you need to believe in. I don't care if it's a God of Islam or a God of the Jews. What I have found out is you need to find a God. And you need to call on that God. I call him Jesus. He wakes me up and puts me to sleep. And our young people now are calling on nothing. They're going out there unprepared. They're fighting fights all alone. I don't wake up in the morning without my God, and I don't go to sleep at night without me. Now let me tell you how this works. I got a couple minutes. I got 3 kids. My 3 kids are 14, 18, and 20. And they're all away from home. San Francisco, New York, and Connecticut. My 14-year-old's she's in boarding school. And they can all go away and be away from me because they have faith in God. Because they believe when times get tough, it's not just their father who taught them that. It's what now they believe. The biggest problem out on our streets today is our young people no longer know what transcendence is. They don't know how to get to God. They don't know who God is. My website is changeofsoul.com. I help people find transcendence, get them to a greater place. I help them find the spiritual side of them. We need to do that. What they need is a chaplain. Somebody who will walk with them at the worst moment of their life and who will not judge them. Yes, sir. That's what they need. They're facing judgment from everybody else. They won't get that from me. They don't need to be told how bad they are. They need to be told how great they are and how they can be greater. I apologize, I have to get back to the north side. Again, changeofsoul.com. If you need me, you can reach me there.
Give up Brother Cobb another hand, y'all. Give him a hand, you all. Before Brother Cobb leaves, since you have to leave, I want to just make sure I tell you this. I do something called Hip Hop Detox, so I work with youth all over the city and all over the country, and one of the things that you made a statement about in terms of them not knowing transcendence. they don't know Fannie Lou Hamer either. They don't know Booker T. Washington either. And when I say they, not all of them, but it's too many of them. They don't have amnesia, they've never been taught.
That's correct.
So you can't forget what you don't know.
That's right.
So that's just one point I want to put out there, because all of us got to recognize that we can't expect or assume. We have to inspect before we expect. And if we inspect before we expect, then we'll find out, man, you all don't even know. So now it's time to introduce you to something that you have no knowledge of. Thank you very much, though, for your points and everything. Please give them another hand, y'all. So now we can go back in order and deal with the entertainment, or lack thereof sometimes, but we want to get our brother to speak on this particular issue. Dr. Grant, give him a hand, y'all.
Hello. Good afternoon, good morning. I'm a little thrown off by what we're doing here, but I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna just freestyle a little bit. So first, I'm not gonna talk so much, the mic is really loud. I'm not gonna talk so much about entertainment. First thing I wanna do, there's this book that I read when I was a graduate student. I did my master's and PhD at Northwestern. The reason I'm sharing this story is when you go to a school like Northwestern and do a PhD, you're pretty much typically going to be one of one, right? So you're the only one there. So I was the only Negro male in my program, and I was in the communications program there. And Northwestern actually has the oldest communications program, oldest film school in the country. Most of the film schools, their faculty was all trained. So NYU, USC, UCLA, all the Spikes teachers came from Northwestern. That's how the game works. But here was the really interesting thing about going to school at Northwestern. I did my undergraduate at Xavier, New Orleans. Robin and I actually went to school together. Xavier has at the time we were in school, the library probably had 100,000 volumes in the entire library, which means that in order for us to do a paper, do any kind of research, we had to go to Tulane or Loyola, sneak in the library, steal books, return them later. We would always give them their stuff back, but we had to survive. When I was at Northwestern, they have a library there that's called the Herskovitz Africana Library. It's the largest repository of Africana material in the world. They have every daily, every weekly, everything, pretty much every published on the continent of Africa. And they got more than 1 million volumes in that joint, right? I would almost never ever see us in there, right? And the reason I'm getting to this issue is I think bigger than entertainment, more important than media literacy is really our critical thinking and how we process media and the game that they run on us, right? So what happens is when you're the only Negro at an institution like Northwestern, they get to the point where they just forget that you're there. So what'll happen is they'll actually start talking about things that they wouldn't talk about if they really realized that you were in the room. They'll start hipping you to books that your little Negro should have never read, right? So there was this book that they hit me to called The Dialectic of Enlightenment. And it's by these cats, Theodore Adorno and Thomas Horkheimer. They were out of the Frankfurt School. And they came up with this whole thing called the culture industry, right? So everybody in this room knows who Harold Washington is. We've all seen all kind of movies, right? Most of us can go back to, some of us can probably go back to a film in 1969 called The Learning Tree, right? Most of us can probably go back to a song called Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, Shaft, and Superfly, right? Here's how the culture industry works. It happened with jazz, it happened with rock and roll, it happened with hip hop. It happens with pretty much every cultural form. And while the economics is very important, but if I control the message, I can control everything. And I can make you believe and do whatever I want you to, right? So when you think about, and a really good example of this is the film Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which most film scholars, film historians all agree on is the film that started the blaxploitation era, right? Most people have never seen the film. They get hung up on the title of the film. They didn't see it, right? How many of you all ever saw the film, Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song? So Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song was this revolutionary film about this brother on the run from the police, and the community is who saves him. Sweetback doesn't save himself. Every time he gets in a jam, it's the community that gets him out of the jam, right? Fast forward, how many of you all read the autobiography of Malcolm X? How many of you all have seen Malcolm X speak? How many of you have read most of his speeches, read other biographical work about him? What was the key element that kept Malcolm X going throughout his life? Got him to the nation, got him through his ordeals in prison, everything. Who was always there? Who? His brothers, his family, right? So when Spike Lee made that film, I don't know if you all remember this, but I think it was probably in the 80s, right after he did She's Gotta Have It, he made this big brouhaha because Norman Jewison had the right, he was about to direct it. Denzel was already attached, and this, I can't remember the white boy who was the original producer who wrote the script. So he was gonna do it, and Spike's big thing was, you're gonna bastardize the image of Malcolm X. Can somebody tell me what was missing from that film? Family. So you get these derivative forms, and we don't pay attention to them. This is like, and the other thing that also happens, because we don't control the message, we don't control the image, we don't control our image at all, is we also get presented with images that we know are wrong, but they're entertaining and we pay for them, right? We really have to sit here and begin to question ourselves, why do we pay $7 and make a 6'5" dude in drag rich? I mean, we really have to begin to question these images and really become critical thinkers about the images that we let in, because now we decided that we don't want to be too much critical about anything we spent, and so when we have the opportunity to step forward, like right now, in the past couple of weeks, we've seen Jim Brown. Yesterday, we saw Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey is on the front page of national newspapers today talking about he's going to fix the problems in Chicago. I mean, so we really have to really begin to really take a long, hard look at how the media is working, how we absorb it, and really become literate about the images, and really begin to really engage those images and change, you know, the framework that we're using, because we're really not paying attention and we're getting played daily. All right?
Please give a hand, yo, to Dr. Grant. Give a hand to Dr. Grant. Next, we're about to move into our next area. And before I pass the mic to Sister Robin, we've gone through economics, education, went into religion, spirituality, and so now we're getting into health, wellness, and food nutrition. So please give a hand to our Sister Robin.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And I just want to start by saying, so my body of work and area of expertise really has been studying health on the spectrum of women, particularly kind of age 50 and up. But when I was asked to be a part of this panel, I went back to, I really wanted to look at some statistics for our youth nationally, and then I wanted to look at some Chicago statistics as well. So forgive me if I read a couple of things to you because I don't have this committed to memory. So our problem as Black people is the health disparities that exist for us. And this is not one disease specific. This is across the spectrum of disease processes for all diseases. And that's the problem statement. We have grave health disparities. And what does that mean? That means that we die from these particular diseases more than other races. And why is that? Because we present later in the disease process when we have a condition. So let me give you some data. So having a background in public health, when I speak publicly, I added this component to my talk, which is to start off talking about violence. And, you know, so to talk about murders and homicide, that's a public health issue, right? Because people are dying. So here in Chicago, in 2016, we had 762 homicides. That was a 50% increase from the previous year. 50%. You all of us should be very alarmed. And we're talking about solutions. Now again, this isn't my area of expertise, but to have a 50% jump. In 2014, there were 423 murders. And for us to have 762 last year, we should all be saying, what happened? Why did it happen? And what can we do about it? 75% of those people murdered were black. 71% of the murderers were black. But that makes sense, right? The media has kind of tricked us around the black on black crime. All crimes, no matter where you go in the world, are most often committed by people of the same race. So we don't have some epidemic of black on black crime. We just have too much crime in our communities that have been ignored. Okay, so moving on to some health statistics. I'm including violence as a health statistic, as it is. Obesity. African Americans have the highest rate of obesity, roughly 50%. You all should all be alarmed. Roughly 50%. So the specific data is 47.8, but I'm gonna round that up to 50. Much too high. Why is that important? Because so many health problems can be traced right back to being obese. So I'm gonna really simplify something. If we could manage our weight and get into a healthy weight, we won't be on the path of so many other health problems. African American women are at the greatest risk. 83% of black women are overweight and obese. That's 8 out of 10. And I see that in real life when I go to Jewel and I'm waiting in line and you could just count the 10 women, you just see it. 77% of Hispanic women are overweight and 63% of white women. Overweight to obese. Now here's interesting about youth. I had to research this. So between the ages of 12 and 19, 20% of black youth are overweight. The leading number is actually Hispanic in the youth category, with 27%, and then followed by 20% of our black youth being overweight and obese, and then 17% of white. But here's what's definitely jumped out when I did this little research. Black girls have the highest rates of obesity. Among the youth, black girls, which is 29% leading, then followed by Hispanic, then followed by white. Why is this a problem? So obesity equals what? High blood sugar, which equals what? High blood pressure, high cholesterol, and what does that lead to? Heart disease, stroke, and death. Death, all right? Yeah. We know about diabetes, right? We know how common that is. We know about African Americans and high blood pressure. This was startling, I didn't know this. African Americans over the age of 20, 42% of men have high blood pressure and 45% of women. I said 20, the age of 20. That was very startling to me. And then finally, breast cancer. And then I'm gonna get to some quick solutions or concepts and theories of solutions. Breast cancer is near and dear to my heart because I have survivors in my family, but I also, before this position, I used to run the women's wellness programs for the YWCA, and I wrote a lot of grants to help increase access to screenings for women of color, for breast cancer screenings. So here's what's interesting about breast cancer. Black women don't have more breast cancer than white women. We just die from it way more than they do. For the reason that I started off with, black women present into the healthcare system later. What does that mean? The white women, I'm getting my screenings, I have a pain in my ear, I'm running to the doctor. Black people don't do that. We wait. We wait, we wait, we wait, we feel something, we don't feel right, we still wait. We have to change that culture of how we listen to our bodies and access health care. So we have a 41% higher rate of death than white women, but not occurrence of the disease, but death. And that's really problematic. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna go to my solutions and strategies. Of course, increase in education, increase in access, meaning access to the healthcare system, and screening services. But the real solution is knowing that we have to bring that to the communities, right? I can't sit at Rush and people can't sit at Northwestern and think, oh, the community's gonna come to us, because how we access healthcare is also learned within our family unit. So I started this program. It's called the Health Legacy Program for Women, and it works in partnership with faith organizations. And I send out a team. I pretty much go to every site myself. We work with the faith leaders. We come into the church. It's like a 6-week boot camp, 6 weeks to better health. And it's health education, it's exercise, it's learning how to cook healthy meals. I bring in a chef. I'm in session today, actually. When I leave here, I'm going to a site in Bronzeville. So what did I say? Health education, exercise, a chef, and then we have a support circle facilitated by Dr. Elise, a dynamic African-American woman who has expert and support groups for women. We know that these components impact and effectuate behavior change. I know my time is up. I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for having me. I have some flyers in the back about this free program. I got Rush to pay for it. I write grants. Please spread the word about the Health Legacy Program. The flyers are in the back. Thank you.
Yes, please give her a hand. Give her a hand. Before we get into the next speaker or panelist that's dealing with law, Brother Pearson, one thing that I want to make a note of and just saying, that's why when we started off in prayer, it seems like more and more, the more we talk, the more we see the value of synergizing. Because there's an overlap in every area, and there's a opportunity to connect in every area. And I just want to put this thought out here. Those who know chemistry, who ever heard of the term isotope? Isotope. Well, when you think about how isotopes happen in nature, I used to always, even now when I go to a school, I'll go into the chemistry class, start talking about, isotopes, and we get into all kind of discussions about how when you're open and available to receive, then it allows for that particular element or compound to grow, to expand. And the reality is that we are in dire need of that right now. We've been needing it, but the more I listen, the more we listen, it's like, wow, we really do need this, because the days of glorifying in silos and saying this is what I do and we do, it's good that all of us have an opportunity to hear what each of us is doing, because work got to get done, but now the work must become greater. We have 23, 24 neighborhoods that need work put in, systematic kind of way, something that's sustainable and continuous. So I really enjoy hearing what I'm hearing. So without further delay, our brother Pearson, he's about to give his issue and solutions in the area of law. Give Brother Pearson a hand.
First of all, I want to thank all the esteemed panelists that we have here. If you can, just give them one more round of applause for stepping forward and trying to, connect all these dots, if you will. I definitely want to thank you, Brother Enoch and Brother Dolphin, for inviting me out for this house of my brothers and sisters, for hosting us. And to a special brother, James Hugel, who has facilitated opportunities for a poor little boy from the projects on 45th and Cottage Grove, Province 17, who didn't have no food, nowhere to sleep, nothing to think about positive in his life. And he said, man, look, you can do anything you want to do. Just got to put your mind to it. And that's where it comes to our community. The law is amazing, especially when it comes to people of color particularly. Did anybody hear about the DOJ's report yesterday? The consent decree in principle. Very, very powerful, impactful statements were made yesterday, right? This a consent decree and principle, right? Principle. What does that mean? What does a consent decree actually mean? What it actually means is somebody sat down and mediated so that they wouldn't get sued and they would not be held liable for actions that they have previously done. That means they admonish any wrongdoing, because I'm going to sit at this table with you and maybe, in principle, make an agreement with you to say, yeah, we'll try to do this. Well, there have been countless consent decrees in the United States of America throughout our history. Many have failed. Many have failed. So what does that tell me? Common sense, that's what my grandmother said, right? They don't teach that in law school sometimes. They actually teach what the philosophy of the previous lawyers and or judges have thought prior to them. Well, what my premise is here with you, and if you don't mind, I had a stroke a few years back in my leg and my arm on the right side. Sometimes kind of get a little dead there, so I'm going to stand up a little bit. But my premise is to you is a simple one. We've talked economics, we've talked a little healthcare, some entertainment, some education, and we'll dive into some other things. But what we really need to maybe focus on is the collective, right? Common unity, community. Someone had mentioned Black Wall Street. Someone had mentioned the disproportionate or desperate impact that we felt in education. Someone that says, hey, they're mind mapping you with entertainment. Someone else has realized that, wow, black folk get sick and die quicker than other folk. Why is that? Is there a systemic concern in our community? And if I were to argue, or if I were to make a legal argument, or if I were to actually use what my grandmama said again, is common sense, I would say, wait, this ain't just start today. This didn't start in the 60s. This started when we got here 400 years ago. So if that, in fact, is the truth, then I have to use some common sense, because what I've been trying to do might not necessarily be the best methodology to alleviate the ills of my community. But what I do know is my grandmama's legacy taught me, hey, wait, if you get in a boxing ring with Mike Tyson and he knocks your behind out, what you gonna do the next time it's time for you to get in the ring with Mike Tyson? You might want to take a gun. They might arrest me and take me to jail after that, but that might be one mythology. But she also said, baby, just don't get in the ring. Just don't get in the ring. Let him fight who he want to fight, and you might learn something from him fighting. So why did I say this? Black Wall Street, Roswell, other communities of color that were significantly well-established, economically thriving. They had their own entertainment facilities. They had their own healthcare, doctors. They had their own education system. Sisters would get up and teach the young people the same way that they had been taught. And other issues and community concerns would be addressed within those communities. Well, believe it or not, the United States of America was founded on that same premise. They said, wait, England, y'all doing things we don't want to do over here. We want to teach our kids a little different. As a matter of fact, we want to keep some of this money that we've been making for y'all by the way. And we're going to save that money, and we're going to educate our children on the principles and the lifestyles that we believe in. And they said, hey, well, we'll go to war with you. They went to war, they won the war. That's one. The next thing is saying, wait, hold on. There's approximately 30 to 40 million black people, at least according to the census in the United States of America, a country that's 300 million people to 500 million people, according to published reports. What we might not want to do is go to war with not being prepared to go into that type of war. So we can't physically go into I'm gonna grab a gun and we're gonna go down the block and shoot everybody up until we win this war. That might not be a good idea right now. But what might be a good idea is to say, wait, let me think, what is a methodology that can get my community into a space where I can grow and develop in a holistic manner that might actually be conducive to future generations, not just where I'm at today. And I say there's common unity in where we are right now. There's a map. You see that map right there? Yes, sir. There's a map of the city of Chicago and the county of Cook. Do you know where the largest county in the state of Illinois is? Everybody knows that's Cook County, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know where the largest concentration of black people in the United States of America happens to reside? Cook County, formerly Cook County, DuSable County. South and the west sides of the former Cook County will become its own county based on home rule law and based on you. This ain't about me, this ain't about what I have to promote, this is about us, the collective, common unity. 2.7 million people. Does anybody here spend $100 a week on either food, water, or shelter? Pass your hands. I have done the research, and approximately every man, woman, and child, food, water, and shelter, $100 in a week. 2.7 million times $100, where's the economist? Where's the 2.7 million times $100 in a week's time? How much money is that?
207 million.
In a month's time, February, happens to be what they call Black History Month. I think it's 365 all around the year, but 2.7 million times 100 in a month's time. $1.13 billion. $1.13 billion. I'm going to leave you with this idea. If you're waiting for them to fix it, after 400 years, you have not gotten the solution that you want. You have to become the solution that you want. You do that by setting a legal foundation, a legal precedent to take ownership of the community from which you exist, from which we come. John Baptiste DuSable, I'll leave you on this. A man of color from Haiti founded the city of Chicago. A black man, looked just like us. Somehow he was bamboozled. We can't fall into that trap today. I want to thank you for your time. Go to Facebook, DuSable County, Illinois, like the page, share the information with your community, let us all know that common unity can get us to the next step. Donald Trump ain't trying to pave the way for us. Peace and love.
Brother Pearson, give him a hand, y'all, to Brother Pearson. Okay, how's everybody doing, first of all? Everybody doing good? All right, please, one more time for me, everybody say solutions. 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 Anybody taking notes, by the way? Anybody taking notes? Because what everybody is saying, we have to engage in what we're talking about in terms of solutions. Solutions that are present, living, active, If we do present, living, active now, then that allows for us to move forward with the ideas that are circulating that we can get into a brainstorming session. But the best way to plan is to look at what's going on now and then either build on it or scrap it because it don't work. That's right. But we have to know what's happening now. So please, without further delay, in the area of war, defense, give a hand to our brother, Student Minister Jeffrey Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, to Brother Enoch and Brother Dolphin and the esteemed panel, would you please give them another round of applause? Brother passed the baton in terms of war, and the thing that our community has to understand that we're already in war. And I think my sister or brother said that the narrative defined by our open enemy has made us to believe that we're not at war, but that we're victims of our own mishaps, which in the strategy of war, according to Sun Tzu, is a great plan to make a people believe that they victimize themselves. War was enacted upon people of African descent in 1555, the kidnapping of the first African. And what we can't let go is many of us say, well, Africans sold Africans. The term of slavery in Africa was never associated with the term of the dehumanization that occurred to us in America. Slavery in Africa could have been the capture of prisoners who were allowed to have families, allowed to educate, and at a certain point were allowed to move into society. Our enemy's term of slavery here, he has tried to connect that with what he considered indentured servants in Europe. It never happened here. We were dehumanized. We lost religion, we lost our language, we were robbed of our culture, and as Brother Enoch said, we were even robbed of our knowledge of God himself. It is the greatest act of war on a human people ever in the history of this planet. War is a conflict between societies. It's extreme aggression, destruction, and mortality. If we can't recognize just from what they've stated that we have been aggressed by the worst atomic mental bomb ever, then none of what we're saying makes sense if we don't believe that we are at war. In terms of religion and spirituality, many times when we're religious, we don't believe in what we consider war, but the Bible says in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 4, God says to his prophet, when you go to war. Throughout the New Testament, God never said pray for enemies. He always raised the king to go to war. And as a Muslim, we believe in Jesus, we believe in the Messiah. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that the coming of the Messiah is a declaration of war against evil. Because the Messiah represents a new kingdom. So when you challenge an already existing kingdom, you've declared war when you say we're going to sit down all tyrants and wicked rulers. The Bible also says that we war not with flesh and blood, but with principalities, spiritual wickedness, and rulers in high places. That means there are men and women in high places that have done evil to us that we go to war with. Now, as a community, we do not have the ammunition to physically go to war against our enemies because we don't manufacture them. But the greatest weapon that we have is, number one, our unity. When we come together and find like interests, our enemy becomes afraid of us. And every black man in here knows when he stands as a collective with black men, even if it's on the corner, you're the most feared species on the planet. Our enemy can get us when we're one or two, but if you find 20 brothers, police do not stop 20 brothers. They will speak to you from a bullhorn in the car, break it up. They don't have the courage to get out of their cars. But 20 brothers that become farmers, and 20 brothers that become educators, and 20 brothers that become business, have declared war on a system of white supremacy that we can begin to self-define our own reality. So what we must do to even declare defense, you cannot have defense if you have nothing to defend. So the first thing we have to have is land, education, control our food, and control our resources. Then as a body of men, we become disciplined mentally and spiritually to defend our own self-interest, not the self-interest of white people that have been imposed on black people. We begin to change that narrative when we stop calling ourselves what they called us. We are not niggas, we are not colored, and we are not Negro. We are people of African descent. And whatever name you choose to call yourself, then you have self-determined yourself. Do not allow someone else to determine your name any longer. And I throw this out because I know most people say in the Nation of Islam we give excess. I ask any of you all, even the whites that are born on the continent of Africa, not one of them take an indigenous name of the Africans. They still take European names, even though they're born on the continent. They will never take an indigenous name. But most of us in this room have the name of a white oppressor that owned your ancestors. That means we're still under ownership. At some point, we must throw off the oppressor's names, the oppressor's language, and the oppressor's ways. Once black men become disciplined to protect our own interests, then we have called what we consider an army to defend not just our land, but our most precious resource, and that is the black woman. We cannot allow our enemy to continue to pursue our women and take them from us, and we have to stop black men from brutalizing black women. As men for before we can challenge an oppressor, we have to go get our children off of corners, not to beat the savage, but to teach the savage. So my last solution is each of us have organizations and groups in what we consider revolutionary. Everyone here should join some group today before you leave and become an active participant in the revolutionary struggle of our people. And please don't be afraid of the word revolutionary. Jesus Christ was the greatest revolutionary of all time. Assalamu alaikum.
Give another hand to our brother, student minister Jeffrey Muhammad. Give another hand, you all.